Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make this 2-color spiral wire macrame bracelet. So we achieve this really cool effect of the 2 colors being intertwined within the spiral all the way along, but it's actually using quite a simple technique. So if you want to learn it, then stay tuned. So these are the wires that we'll need. Now they're all regular round copper based wire. First of all, here I have a 0.8mm. This is going to be the base wire. You could also use something like a 1mm. And for this wire I chose a silver color. Now these other 2 wires are both 0.5mm, so these are going to be working wires, and we do need 2 different colors to achieve the effect that we need. So I just chose a silver and then copper there, but you can of course choose whatever colors you want to. You can also use a 0.6mm instead of this 0.5. The 0.5 here is just going to give you a bit of a finer look, so it's completely up to you. But don't forget to check out the description box below the video. Otherwise, let's get our wires ready and let's get started. So then the wire that we'll need is first of all a length of a 0.8mm here of about 35 centimeters. So this just needs to be the holding wire running through the whole bracelet. We then need 2 lengths here of a 0.5mm of about 1 meter and 60 centimeters, and we need 1 of each color. So I'm going to be working on my mini macrame board here. Has these notches all the way around, so it makes it nice and easy to work with. And to get started, I'm going to grab my length of 0.8mm wire here, so the base wire, and I need to attach this to my board. So I'm just going to attach it on the short side and just leave a little bit of a tail, maybe about 5 centimeters or so, and put that around the back, and then go all the way down to the bottom and place the other end in the directly opposite slot down there. And again, there's a bit of a tail, about 5 centimeters or so down there, and I'm just pushing that around the back. So I've now attached my base wire, holding wire here, to my macrame board. And from here I then need to grab 1 of my lengths of 0.5mm wires here, and I'm just starting with the silver one because that matches with the color of my holding wire. And I then take the length, put the 2 ends together because we need to find where the midpoint is, roughly. And I bring all the way down here. And then I know this is the midpoint, so kind of just create a little gentle curve like that. I then take 1 of the ends and bring it underneath the holding wire here. Put the ends together again, and then just bring the whole wire through until we get that midpoint to sit below the holding wire. And we then need to attach it, and I'm going to do that simply by using a square knot. So obviously because it's still loose underneath, I'm just going to kind of keep hold of it with my fingers at the top here. So I'm going to take the left length, bring that over the holding wire there, that's attached to the board, towards the right, and then I take the right length over that and then underneath everything in the middle, but then come up through the loop here on the other side. So this is just a basic square knot, if you're familiar with that, from regular macrame. And I'm just keeping that midpoint of the 0.5mm wire there down with my finger as I'm tightening this, and just tighten it all the way until we can't anymore, like that. And what I always like to do as well when I'm working with wire for macrame is whenever I tighten a knot, so like this, I always like to run, as I've tightened it there, the wire through my hands and fingers just to kind of smooth it out, because if I just let go after I've tightened it, you can see we get little misshapen areas in the wire. So just run it through before we then use the wire for the next movement. So I'm just going to start with making a full square knot here. So I started with my left wire, now I'm going to take my right one, go over first, and then the left one goes over that and underneath everything in the middle, and make sure to go underneath that holding wire as well, up through the loop on the other side, to then be able to tighten this. And this is now 1 full square knot. So you can just kind of push that up to the top, something like that. And then I'm going to grab the other wire, in this case here my copper one, and just repeat the exact same thing. So find the midpoint and then attach that, also using a square knot. So my copper wire now sits below my silver wire, and now I need to get started on the pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm always going to grab the top wires and use for my next knot. So that means I need to start with my silver ones, and to create the pattern for the silver one here, what I'm going to do is the left one I'm going to bring down but underneath the copper one in this case, and then the right one here is going to come down as well to be the next wires to use, but this is going to go over the copper wire on this side. So basically they're kind of off from each other. So I have my copper length of wire coming up and over there, and the other side on the right is coming underneath. But what I'm then going to do is literally just, now that I know I have the correct position for my wires, I'm just going to grab my length here, the two lengths that I'm working with. So the left one goes over, and then the right one goes over that, underneath everything in the middle. Pull it up, and then this is what's basically equivalent to the first half of a square knot that we made initially there when we attached the wires, and then just tighten that all the way up to sit right below that copper knot that we made previously. And that is all I'm going to do for that. So I'm not going to be making full square knots. That was literally just when we first attached them, because basically what we want to be doing now is a spiral knot, which means we're only going to be making what's technically the first half of a square knot. And I'm going to move straight on to the next wires. So just put these two that we just used out of the way to the sides. I'm then going to grab the copper ones now. So previously the silver one, I brought my left one under the copper one. So in this case here, the copper one needs to go over the silver one. Obviously these are just the colors that I'm using, but this one here goes over, and on the right side it needs to be opposite of the one we just did, so that needs to go under. And then bring them down. So in this case here, you can see the silver wires are coming out here opposite to what the copper ones did previously. So my right silver one is going out over, and the left silver one is coming underneath. But now we have them down. I'm literally going to just grab these lengths and again make that same knot as I just did with the silver. So my left wire goes over, the right wire goes over that, underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop. And then just tighten that all the way up to sit below, and then bring the wires out to the side. So as you can see, I'm only doing that single spiral knot now, or if you prefer, the first half of a square knot. And now we're straight back to the silver one again that we need to use, because we just used the copper ones. So if we have a look, you can also kind of tell if you're looking where the wires are coming out right from the knots there. It will kind of help guide you where you need to bring the wires over and under as you bring them down. So we just need to keep repeating the same thing with the same color basically. So last time we brought the silver ones, when we used them, the left side goes underneath the copper one. And just get that copper one out of the way. And on the right side, we need to bring it over the copper one and down. And then they're ready and in position to just make knot with. Whoops. So same knot. And then tighten that all the way up. Just sit right below the others. Put these wires out to the side. And moving on to the copper ones. And if we do the same as before, and if you can kind of tell where the wires are naturally wanting to go as well, this copper one is kind of pointing upwards over the silver one, which means, and also is what we want to do, bring that down over the silver on the left side here. And to do the opposite on the right side, we need to bring it underneath the silver one. But otherwise, do the exact same knot. So it's basically very repetitive throughout, and the only difference is making sure, depending what color you're using, is to bring the wires over or under in the right order. And pull that up nice and tight. And I just like to make sure my knots are as tight as possible there and get them as consistent throughout as possible as well. So we can slowly start to see that spiral effect that we're getting. And basically now I just want to keep repeating this. So bring the next wires down. We need to use the opposite color to what we just used. So the silver one here goes underneath on the left side, which means on the right side it goes over. And then we just repeat the knot. So like this here, and tighten it. And what you also, I just want to mention, don't need to worry about really, because we're using wire, and obviously it works a little bit, reacts a bit differently than when using cord for macrame. Tighten that there. Because we're doing the spiral knot, normally you would kind of have to move your working cords around with the knot, but with wire here we don't really need to do that, because you'll probably find that the macrame that you've already done further up, obviously the more you make further down you'll have a further and further length. It will kind of just naturally maneuver itself around the holding wire in the middle there, so you shouldn't really have to worry about that. Obviously if you feel the need to, you can always move your working wires around with your knots, but it shouldn't really be necessary. But otherwise just keep repeating this until you have the length that you need. So then to finish off the other end here, I'm going to start out taking my copper wire, and same thing, the left one goes over, the right one goes under, and then start the knot just like throughout. Tighten that. But now, because this is the last knot I'm going to do, instead of just making that single spiral knot or first half of the square knot, I'm actually going to make a full square knot. So start with the other side and then finish it off like that. And then it's just the same thing with the silver wires, bringing that left one under and the right one over. And then here I also just want to make a square knot, and I'm just doing this so I can use these knots to actually then finish off the wires with. Do the other side and tighten that, and there we go. So now I removed it from my macrame board here, and then just to finish off the wires, I'm just going to show you, we only need to do it on this end because we doubled over the working lengths. We don't need to finish off any wires up here, so it's just focusing on this. Now I'm going to start with, in my case here, the copper one, so the inner one or top one of the two knots you could say. And what I want to do is, if you kind of have a look at the knot, you can more see it on the bottom one, but you'll find that the wires are coming out kind of either towards the back of the knot or towards the front. So here, this one that I'm holding here is coming out kind of towards the back of the knot. So what I just want to do is bring it further towards the back, but because the silver wire is kind of in the way, I just need to go down through the hole or gap in that silver wire. So obviously that's previous knots that we made, and just bring this wire through to the other side basically. That is the goal of this. And I'm going to do the same with the other one. So the other copper one, also just bring it around to the other side. Like this. All the way through, and then make sure it's pulled nice and tight. And then what we're going to do is just kind of bring them to the opposite side of where they're coming out from. Same with, just get untangled there, the other one, so it's kind of coming out from the top side there. I'm just going to bring it further towards the bottom side. Now technically what this is doing is starting to, for these wires here to kind of wrap around that holding wire, but within the knot. And that's exactly what we want, because what I'm then going to do is go in and cut off the excess, but make sure there's a tiny little tail coming from where the wire is coming from the other side. So just leave a little tail, but cut off the excess. So that's one side. Same with the wire on the other side. Because what we can then do, get rid of those, is take our tweezer nose and just squeeze those end, basically as if they're continuing the wrap, but then that way the ends of the wire gets tucked basically into the knot, so nothing's going to be sticking out and catching or scratching on anything. So just make sure to get rid of those wire ends. And then basically it's the same with that next knot, but in this case it's easy just to bring it around because we haven't got anything else in the way. So this one here is coming out towards the bottom on the other side. Just bring that further around, and the same with the other one. Bring that further around. Go in, cut off the excess, make sure it's going to be a short little tail left. That we then have made sure that's wrapping around that holding wire in the middle, just ever so slightly, which is enough to secure it, but then just make sure to push them down. And just put your finger over it if you can't feel anything. That's good. If you can, just need to tuck it in a bit more basically. But that's how you finish off the working wires. And then what we have left are the wires coming through the whole bracelet. So basically the holding wire, the 0.8 gauge in this case. Now you can choose to use this wire itself and make a clasp with, or you can choose to just make some loops and attach a separate clasp. I'm just going to make some loops here and then attach a separate clasp. So all you want to do is place your chain nose or tweezer nose here, just a little bit above where the macrame ends. Put a bend into it, and then I'm just going to take my 6-step bell making pliers. You can also use round nose pliers. I like using the smallest step for this. Place it where that bend is, and then bring the wire all the way around to create a full circle like that. Now I then take my tweezer nose again, grab onto that circle, and then use the rest of this wire here to fill in that little gap that we left when we initially made the bend. Just basically until we haven't got any more space. So 2 or 3 wraps or something like that. And then take my flush cutters, go in and cut off the excess. And then again, principle, make sure to get rid of that end of the wire so you can't feel it, because right now it's just sticking out ever so slightly. So make sure to squeeze that down using your pliers. And of course, I'm going to do the same on the other end as well. And then once you've done that, you're going to have these loops handy and already in the bracelet that I can then use to attach whatever clasp I want to using jump rings. And then finally, to shape the bracelet, you can either shape it around something that has the size and shape you want it to have, or just use your hands and fingers and gently go in from one place and start putting a curve into it. Now don't go in and make a big bend, that'll kind of put it out of shape, but just go in and add a curve all along, just gently, and then going back and forth until basically the aim is for the both of the ends there to be brought together, so we can obviously then be able to use the clasp. So we achieved this really cool and interesting spiral effect, but with the 2 colors intertwined within the spiral. So I do really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Now if you do like wire macrame, feel free to check out my channel. I have loads of other wire macrame tutorials and other things as well. But thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.